Hello everybody and welcome to a new series that I'm going to be doing on my channel called 1K MMR Impressions. And in this series, I'm going to give my impressions on certain updates or other things within the Dota 2 community, and it's from the perspective of a 1K MMR player. Right now my MMR is about 1200, so I think that's fairly accurate. Today we'll be going over the Blade Form Legacy update, also known as Dota 2 version 7.03. And although this is called Impressions of a 1K MMR player, it's not going to be the first impressions of this update, as I have already looked over the changelog a little bit and seen some of the changes just so I can make sense of them beforehand. But without further ado, let's get started. So this update includes the Juggernaut Arcana as well, and I won't really be going over that much. You know, it's pretty cool. It has a dragon. A few people are complaining about the color scheme being very different and how it's very difficult to tell exactly which hero it is, with the minimap icon being similar to, for example, Leshrac, and the hero itself really looking like Phantom Assassin's Arcana. But I really don't want to deal with that right now. I think that's a discussion for another video. So in this update, there is a new Captain's Mode UI, which is something that has been requested very much recently. Well, not recently. It's actually been a long time, since 7.0 first came out. And now it finally matches, which is really nice. Although I really don't play Captain's Mode that much. But I do think this will have an impact on the pro scene, I guess. It's just better for spectating. Jakiro got a model update too, which is fairly good. I like the Firehead now. I think it looks pretty cool. Although I'm not really a fan of the Ice Head. I think it's... I don't know. Again, this isn't really the focus of the video. The focus of the video is the update and the gameplay changes. So the first change is added Monkey King to Captain's Mode. I think that's okay. I think he's in a fairly good place right now. The XP required to go from level 1 to 6 has been increased. Okay, so now it takes much longer to get your first level, the first level of your ultimate. Okay, to be honest, I'm not really sure what impact this is going to have. I guess it takes longer for the whole team fighting thing to start, because so many people aren't going to have their ultimate and they're not going to want to fight without it. So I guess this is to counter the way that the meta recently has been really focused on early fighting. XP required to go from level 9 to 13 has been redistributed. So the total XP is the same, but lower levels require more XP. So again, it's more difficult to start fighting early, because it's more difficult to get levels in the early game. But it's easier to get levels in the late game, because this is a massive difference. 740 to 1200, I think this is level 13. So it used to take a very long time to get there. So, whereas these 3 levels beforehand were fairly easy to get in comparison, whereas now it's distributed more evenly. Which would, again, sort of slow down the meta as well, I think. But the overall XP is the same. Okay. I think this would make it a little bit easier to start snowballing, honestly. Because before you kind of hit a wall with level 13. Whereas now you just kind of... It's more difficult to get started, but it's also... If you're at an advantage, you can also push that advantage further, because you just don't end up hitting this wall as hard. Okay, next change. AoE kill golden XP bounties reduced by 10%, including comeback golden XP. Alright, so again, I think that's a change that is discouraging teamfighting a little bit, because it's reducing the amount of gold you get from teamfighting, so it's making it more worthwhile to start farming more than fighting. Tier 1 team bounty reduced from 160 to 120. So this is referring to the Tier 1 towers, which are the outer towers, the very outer ring of towers outside of each base. And the bounty has been reduced on those, okay. So again, that's making it less worthwhile to push early. So all of these changes seem to favor late game lineups, honestly. Passive gold income reduced by 10%. Okay. That one's gonna really hurt supports. But I think it'll encourage people to take the the extra gold per minute talents that are available now, because it's more difficult to just passively gain gold, so you need some other sources of gold, and those talents are an excellent way to get there. So I think that's a buff to those. But yeah, supports are going to be hurting. Reduce lane melee creeps base gold bounties by 2. Okay, so at the very beginning of the game, melee creeps will give 2 less gold. So that will slow down getting really early items, such as Helm of the Dominator and all these like mechanism, you know, all of these early to mid game items that can sort of start a big snowball. It's going to make those items more difficult to get, and increase lane creeps. Melee creeps gold bounty per upgrade cycle by 1, and I believe each upgrade cycle is 7 minutes, although I could be mistaken. So either way, now they give more gold in the late game, which should make comebacks a little bit easier, because now the early game farming and early game pressure isn't as important, just because there's less gold to get there, and there's going to be more gold in the late game past 14 minutes. So mid to late game farming is now a lot more important. Reduced lane range creeps gold. Okay, so that balances that out. Yeah, I don't think this one is as big of a change, just because there's only one range creep, so reducing its gold bounty per upgrade cycle by 1 really isn't that significant. Shrine's base HP regen. Okay, so now it's reduced, meaning it's going to be more difficult to take fights around shrines, which should sort of incentivize more aggressive fighting, I think, because now the enemy team won't have shrines to fall back on. All towers base armor reduced by 4. Okay, that's an interesting change. So more pushing, I guess. Now gain 2 armor per nearby enemy player. So you want there to be less players near enemy towers. So this is what, split pushing then? This is a buff to split pushing, I think. Because with split pushing, you only have one hero really near a tower. So then overall, that's -2 armor for towers. Okay, and now pushing as a team is going to get more difficult. And the tier 1 tower HP has been slightly increased to offset the early pushing that would be easier for heroes like Luna to push solo, you know, very early and push down that tier 1 tower. This is to sort of counter that. Scan cooldown reduced from 270 to 210 seconds. I think that's a good change. I think, well, I mean, at low level, scan is underused either way, so I don't think it'll make that big of a deal. Like, I think in my past, you know, few games, I haven't even used scan once. So, you know, it's just, I think this is a good change though, because now with the cooldown being lower, it's something that's a bit more important and something that you can actually use a bit more. So now, you know, it would make sense. Like, it's more incentive for people to actually learn to use this mechanic and get used to using it. So I like that. Ranked all pick hero selection time reduced. Okay, whatever. I don't think 5 seconds is really a big deal, to be honest. Let's go to the items now. Battle Fury, cleave damage increased. I like that. Battle Fury was very much underbought. I think Anti-Mage was the only hero that really bought it, at least in pubs. I mean, in some circumstances, you could buy it on other heroes, but before it was really Anti-Mage. But now it could be more viable on heroes like Juggernaut with, you know, the new Arcana. More people are going to be playing Jug. Blightstone no longer available in the side shop. Okay, that one really hurts Weaver and heroes that like to harass. So now laning is going to be a bit more defensive, I guess, just because you can't really harass out like if you're going to commit to harassing, you have to do it. You have to commit to it in the base, you know, because you can't buy this from the side shop anymore. So you can't just stay in lane for a bit, get some gold, and then buy a Blightstone. Now you have to commit to it, and I don't think as many people are going to do that anymore. So laning just got a little bit easier, I think, especially for the safe lane against heroes like Weaver. Bloodthorn, cooldown increased from 13 to 14. I don't think that's a big deal. Bloodthorn is already fairly good. It's not bought very often, but when it is bought, it has a fairly significant impact. But I don't think that 13 was necessarily too short of a cooldown, but then 14 really isn't that long either. I mean, 1 second. It's not really that big of a deal, I don't think. I think Bloodthorn is going to be bought about the same, and it's going to have about the same impact. I mean, maybe you get it off 1 extra time in a team fight, but I don't think this changes that big. Drummer Endurance. Recipe cost reduced. Okay, so now this item is even cheaper stats, and it's even cheaper. It provides a lot of value for much less. Or it provides the same amount of value, but it's just much less of a cost with it. So, you know, the value kind of goes up there. So that is sort of offset by this change, where it's more difficult to get these early to mid-game items. So to counter that, Drum of Endurance really has been replaced by, in the last patch, 7.02, most people went Helm of the Dominator. I mean, not really at low levels, but most people went Helm of the Dominator instead of Drum of Endurance. And now with this change, I think more people are going to buy Drum, especially now that it's going to be more difficult to get these types of items. Daedalus, crit strike damage increased 5%. Okay, I think that's okay. I don't think that's really a big deal. Daedalus, nowadays Blightstone is really, or Bloodthorn, not Blightstone. Bloodthorn is more common than Daedalus, so I think that Daedalus did need a buff, but I'm not sure that this is enough of a buff to justify going Daedalus. I mean, 5% crit, that's really not that big of a deal, you know? If you're going to crit, you're either going to, you know, with a crit, you either kill someone or you don't. And a crit takes off a huge chunk of their health, and then okay, let's just see how big of a change that is with the percentage. So then 230 divided by 235. Okay, so that's less than like 3%. Just over 2%. Yeah, I don't think that's a big deal in terms of how much the damage actually increased. Dragonlance, agility bonus reduced. Okay, Dragonlance just keeps getting nerfed, and it's still a pretty good item. Honestly, it's hard to say when these nerfs will stop. I don't think this is enough of a nerf to turn it into a bad item. And I think a bigger nerf to Dragonlance would be to increase the cost. But then again, with the with this change, it's also going to be more difficult to farm a Dragonlance, so maybe that combined with the agility bonus reduction decrease, those two things together will, you know, reduce the amount that people buy Dragonlance. Like, they'll reduce which heroes it's sort of really good on, and in which situations people might consider other items. Echo Saber no longer slows attack speed. I don't think that's that big of a deal at all. Really, Echo Saber seems like it's in a pretty good place right now. I might have even gone for a slightly bigger nerf, because I don't think slowing attack speed, it only slows it for what, half a second, 0.6 seconds, I think. So in that time, you're really not going to have that much of an impact with an attack speed slow. You know, with Echo Saber, you usually jump on someone with a blink or whatever, you initiate on them, and then you just smack them twice. And in that time, they're usually not going to attack you anyway, so I don't think this is that big of a deal. Okay, Helm of the Dominator. Nerf and nerf. Well, now definitely no one's gonna buy it in low-level pubs. But for higher levels, yeah, I guess this is a fairly big change. I mean, -2 all stats and 75 more gold. I don't know. It's hard to tell with that one because I really don't have much experience with this item in 7.0 just because it's not really bought that often in low-level pubs, and I don't buy it personally, so yeah. I guess that's a good change. It was fairly powerful in high levels, from what I understand. Headdress, recipe cost increased 100. Wow, okay, so that one really hurts. So I assume that means that mech will be much more expensive now. So again, that's going with the theme of making these early to mid-game items that have a big impact in early team fights. These items are more difficult to get now, and this change is consistent with that. So yeah, I guess Valve or Ice Frog is really trying to shift away from a constant fighting type meta by making it more difficult to fight. Hood of Defiance, magic resistance reduced. That's interesting. I don't think this change is that big of a deal. Well, 5% is actually quite a lot, to be honest. Yeah, I don't know. Well, let's look at the math. I think, by the way, for that other one, I did the math kind of wrong. So the change is 5%, so 5 divided by 30, so it's 1/6. 17%. That is a lot of value that you're losing from Hood of Defiance. And again, I suppose that makes really heavy magic type heroes, nukers, really int-based heroes. It makes them more powerful. But then Hood of Defiance really isn't that common, I don't think. It's bought on heroes like Centaur, but I don't think it's really that good of a general item that you could really buy on any hero to contribute to fights. So I don't really agree with this change. I think if anything, they could have increased the cost of it. Hurricane Pike cooldown increased. Okay, so again, that's together with the Dragon Lance nerf. It's really nerfing these range items. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I mean, 1 second. I don't know. I think in situations where you would have bought a Hurricane Pike, you would still buy it. So I don't think this is that big of a deal. Mask of Madness attack speed increase. It's a good change. Mask of Madness, even at low levels, like even when you're stomping, really isn't that. It really isn't purchased often. But I don't think 20 attack speed is the right way to solve the problem. Because right now the downside of using it is just too high, that silence, it really hurts. Because, a lot of heroes rely on casting spells. But Mask of Madness, I don't know. Might see it bought a bit more often on a few carries, but I don't think people are going to buy it. I don't think this pushes it into being a good item. It's just now maybe an okay item. Moonshard can now be cast on allied heroes. Okay, so that's a fairly big one. Support Alchemist incoming? Maybe? Who knows? With this change, it's really big, so it's hard to see what effect it might have on the pub and pro scene. I don't think it's going to be used in the pro scene that much. I mean, maybe certain, position 6 support type players would use it, but if you're playing a position 6, you don't have the gold to farm up a moon shard anyway. And if you're playing, let's say, a position 3 or 4, you really don't want to give up 4,000 net worth of value. That's a lot of value that you could have for yourself. So I don't think this change, it's interesting, but I don't think it really fits in anywhere properly, if that makes sense. Necronomicon cooldown reduced. Okay, Necro really isn't being bought that much. With the cooldown reduction, that's okay. You could use it to push more often. That's pretty good, I think. Rod of Atos cast range increased. Okay, so now Rod of Atos continues getting stronger with the root. So now, I don't know. This change is it's interesting because with Rod of Atos, I mean, okay, this change allows you to sit further back in order to use it, but at the same time, you still want to. If you're the type of hero that sits back and uses Rod of Atos, you usually have spells that you want to cast, so you're going to want an Ether Lens anyway. So I don't think this cast range increase is really that big of a deal. Personally, I still think that Rod of Atos could use maybe a rework in terms of what items are, in terms of what its components are. I think that might make it more useful. I don't think this cast range increase is that big of a deal, though. Maybe it's useful for when you're defending high ground or something like that. Because then you could just root someone and then let your team take care of them, and you don't have to get as close. That's okay. Silver Edge, backstab damage reduced. Okay, this is interesting. Backstab damage reduced, so the initiation isn't as good. You don't blow someone up as fast as you used to. But then Silver Edge really, it's not too common either. Most people are fine with just buying a Shadow Blade and then buying one or two other major items and then upgrading Silver Edge. And I think this just further disincentivizes upgrading the Shadow Blade to a Silver Edge. So I don't like this change personally. TP scroll cooldown increased. Okay, so it's more difficult to save people now. It's more difficult to defend objectives. Again, that's with the split pushing. This really does make split pushing stronger. Ultimate Orb cost increased. Okay, so this... I guess this hurts Ive Scotty. It hurts Silver Edge, I think, as well. Let me check. Are there any other items that use an Ultimate Orb? Oops. Ultimate Orb. I'm just looking it up on the wiki right now. So Lincoln's, Sheepstick, Hex, Manta, Silver Edge, and Scotty. This really hurts Weaver. Man, this patch is just not kind to Weaver. Yeah. I mean, 50 isn't that big of an increase for such an expensive item. I don't think it's too big of a deal, but it does hurt those items that it goes into. Especially Scotty, since it needs two of them. Okay, Abaddon, Aphotic Shield mana cost rescaled. It's increased now. So that's rather unfortunate. I mean, Abaddon had a very high win rate, or he still does have a high win rate, probably, in low-level pubs. Just because people don't know what to do about him. Don't know how to play against him effectively. But I think this change really hurts high levels more than it does low levels. I don't think this change has that big of an impact. 15 mana, though. I wonder if this will vary up the skill build. I don't think it will. I think Aphotic Shield still is a very important skill. But it might make maxing out the first skill, Mist Coil, more viable now. Okay, level 25 talent increased. Okay, that's good. I don't think many people get this in low levels. So, that's a good change. 80 Chilling Touch damage to 100. Okay, I think that's also pretty good. As is this one. I think most people will still go for the Chilling Touch. But then this turns it into a charge-based ability. It's not just extra charges. I don't know. Let me look it up on Dota Buff. Let's see what the let's see how many people get each one. Okay. Ancient Apparition. Okay, so alright. So more people choose the charges, but the Chilling Touch has a higher win rate. Interesting. I don't know, I think that's okay. Arc Warden, is he any good? Mana cost rescaled. Okay, that's 30 mana. Quite a bit. Tempest double duration increased. Okay, again, I think this is better for split pushing. And the talent increased to extra spark wraith damage. That's good. Maybe Arc Warden will be viable now as a pusher. Maybe not viable, but better than he was before, certainly. Base damage increased by 4. I think that's fine. And wow. Bane is now super fast. Yeah, okay. That's fine. That's okay. Level 25 talent increased. 300. That's actually a huge AoE now. That's massive. It really is. So now he's better at disrupting teams in the late game. Alright. It's a cool change. Extra health. Alright, that's... You know, it is what it is. 50, it's okay. 25 health at level 10. Again, I think that's gonna have a small impact. Level 15 talent, extra magic resistance. Okay. 2% at level 15, though, is fairly low. Yeah, it really is. I think 13% would have been a bit better. But again, I don't really play Brewmaster, so I don't really know. Extra strength, okay, it is what it is. 1 strength on Bristleback, though. It's pretty good, especially because of the extra value that you get out of having health on Bristleback due to his passive. He takes reduced damage, so you effectively get more HP per, you know, every actual HP that you have. Level 20 talent, increased attack speed, and increased respawn time reduction. That's fine. I still think respawn time is the better one. Because you don't really attack too often as Bristleback. I mean, as Bristleback, you really tend to chase and get kited. So increasing attack speed really doesn't help you that much. I don't think. But who knows? Maybe if you're building a more carry type Bristleback, it could work. Broodmother, extra health. Wow, that is a lot of health. Yeah, okay, cool. Extra attack speed and extra spider attack damage. Alright, so better at pushing or better at still pushing, really. Okay, so now she's just a more potent pusher, and with this, a slightly more potent fighter. Base armor reduced by 1, and stampede damage reduction reduced. Scepter is still going to be fairly good. But that armor, though. So now it's going to be more difficult for him to lane. Okay, that's okay. Extra Crystal Nova damage, good change. Vacuum cooldown. Darkseer just keeps getting hit with the nerfs. I don't know if this is the one that I personally would have changed. But hey, what do I know, right? I'm 1k MMR. Okay, Death Prophet. 1% extra spell amp, or 2% extra magic resistance. Okay. Okay, that's good. I mean, her talents were absolute garbage. Now they're still not great, but slightly better. 50 movement speed, though. This is a good one. Now, yeah, this really helps her move around in fights. But then by level 20... Yeah, it's true. At level 20, you do use the movement speed quite a bit. So I think that's okay. Extra health, that's good. And extra spirits, also good. So health is more useful for fighting. Spirits is more useful for fighting and pushing, really. That's a good change, though. I like that. I think 400 health at level 25 really was underwhelming. And 8 spirits is now actually a fairly big change from however many spirits it was. Let's see how many it is. Let's look at the wiki. Death Prophet. So at max level, it's 24. So plus 8, that's actually quite a bit now. Yeah, that's good. Maybe we'll see some more people playing Death Prophet. Dragon Knight. Again, he's fairly underplayed, I think. Extra strength, that's good. Attack speed, that's okay. I think the strength now is the better option. 9 strength at level 10 is a lot. 60 movement speed to 75. Alright, that's fine. I mean, I don't think movement speed on Dragon Knight is particularly good. But with plus 75, that is quite a bit. Earth Spirit, base movement speed reduced. Okay, that's fine. Keeps getting nerfed. Pro scene. Still don't see him in pubs, in low-level pubs. Aftershock damage increased by 25 at all levels. That's good. We might see Earthshaker played as an offlaner now. Because right now, he's just not played often at all. And extra strength. Also fine, I think. Agility gain on Elder Titan. So that's mostly useful for the more armor. Because you don't really use attack speed very much on Elder Titan, unless you're going for some weird carry-type build. That's okay. Reduced spell amp, increased damage. Okay, so they're trying to bring back the old Ember. More armor. And now they switch these around, so now you cannot get cooldown reduction with the extra chains, I think. So now you can't just almost permanently root someone with Octarine. That's good. Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing Ember back, not back to the way he was, but making that more, making his old style of play more viable. I think that'd be fairly good. Enchantress, base movement speed increased. Okay, so now she's insanely fast. Extra, okay, so this got changed from extra duration to extra wisps. That is, in my opinion, a good change. So instead of a longer duration heal, it's now healing more for the existing duration. I think that's pretty good. And it kind of helps. It really forces you to use it at a good time instead of just activating it and forgetting about it. It really forces you to make that decision. Magic resistance, meh. 3%, not that big of a deal. And from 12 wisps to enchant effects ancients. Okay. Okay. That's interesting. Enchant affects ancients. So now Enchantress is pretty good at pushing. That's cool. I don't know if this is too strong. It might be a bit strong with these other changes. We'll have to see. Level 10 talent, slightly increased strength, that's fine. Extra health, that's okay. Gyro needs a buff in my opinion. I don't think this is enough. But I think... yeah, especially with the way that the meta is shifting now towards split pushing, I don't think this is a big enough buff. I think it should be slightly higher. Level 25 talent, but then, you know, of course I can see that they don't want to overbuff it. Huskar, extra cast range. That's okay. Let's look at Huskar's talents. Slash Huskar. Talents, 100 attack range. Again, I think... I don't know, actually. Maybe this will make people want to... So it's now more of a fighting versus pushing type thing again. Yeah, we'll see. That's okay. Alacrity mana cost increased. Okay, that's quite a bit, actually. So now it's more difficult to push, because it costs more mana to boost your pushing power as Invoker. It's fine. Relocate cooldown rescaled to be more at lower levels. Well, is IO really that strong early game, though? I thought the whole point of IO is that he's fairly strong late game. Although with the whole split pushing thing, I can see why they'd want to reduce the ability to just teleport a tiny into a tower and then just melt it and then leave. So now there's a longer cooldown, so you can't do that as often. Extra XP gain, I think that's fine. I think this is also fine. Jakiro might be pretty good now. Okay, Juggernaut. Okay, so now there's going to be more people. So now feeding your healing ward is now much worse because you give a lot more golden XP. It's an okay change. I mean, that's going to hurt pubs for sure. It's going to hurt low-skill Juggernaut players in pubs. Mana leak duration reduced. Okay, that's good. Mana leak was extremely annoying. It still is, but not to as much of an extent. Mana cost increased. I think that is also fine. So mana leak just isn't... It's still annoying, but it's not as annoying. That's fine. Extra movement speed on Kunkka, I think, is a good change. I'm not really sure how Kunkka is right now. He used to be played a lot. Now he isn't. I don't think this one change is enough to bring him back, though. Minus 8 seconds, press the attack cooldown. Okay, let's go to Legion Commander. Minus 8 seconds, press the attack cooldown. Yeah, the 40 dual damage bonus is just so good, though. I think most people would still go for that. Low 25 talent increased from extra lightning storm slow duration to 3 seconds. So now it's a very long slow. Good change, but I still don't think Lesh is that great, especially in the meta that we're in right now. He's certainly good at fighting, but now with all those other changes, he might just be worse off than before, even with this buff. Okay, Lich is better now. I already thought he was pretty good, but I guess Ice Frog didn't think so. Minus 4 second Frost Blast cooldown. Okay, so now this is going to be a better option, I think. Didn't think Lich was in a bad place before, honestly. I thought it was pretty good. But now he's even better, I guess. I think we'll be seeing a lot more of him. Base damage reduced by 3 on Lifestealer. That's whatever. I mean, it's a fairly significant reduction, but it's... I don't think it'll hurt him too much. It's more difficult. I guess you need more support in the early game to zone out the enemy offlaner. It's okay though. Extra respawn time, that's fine. Extra light strike array damage, also fine. Lina might be okay now. Okay, buffing Lina carry and also buffing Lina carry. Not really sure what this means. Well, let's see. Lina. Okay, so Fiery Soul gives extra movement speed and extra attack speed, so this just buffs that amount. Okay, so yeah, Lina carry might be pretty good now. Extra respawn time and extra damage, I think that's fine. Lion wasn't really played very often. Okay, more nerfs to Druid is okay. Yeah, I think that's fine. I think now he's in a pretty bad place though. Base damage reduced by 4. You'll lose damage at level 15. You increase the cooldown on that to make it more difficult to push. Okay, so now Lycan's going to be fairly strong, because with the pushing changes and this change, it's going to be even better. Medusa, I still think the lifesteal is better, although this might be viable now. Okay, Monkey King, added to Captain's Mode, good. Max duration 35 seconds, I don't think that really matters. That's going to hurt. And that one is it's going to make it more difficult for him to zone out an area for a long time, such as when he's pushing high ground. You can just use your ult to just completely get the enemy away from the racks so they can't defend them. But now you have to, you have to take the racks faster. You can't zone out the enemy for as long of a period of time. That's fine. Mana cost rescaled, that's a very powerful change, I think. Extra int and extra movement speed. Okay, so now Prophet's going to be fairly good in my opinion. Spiky Carapace cooldown, nerfed at lower levels. That's okay, I don't think this is that big of a deal. It makes him a bit worse in fights. Base movement speed reduced, I think that's fine. Bloodlust mana cost increased. So now Ogre is going to be very bad, I think. Not very bad, but yeah, these changes really do make him slightly worse. That's a good change. Now, Spirit Land solutions give the same constant 5 bounty as Juxtapose, rather than scaling with levels. So now you don't feed as much gold as Phantom Lancer. It's okay. Extra GPM on Phoenix, I think, was definitely needed. So now it really lets you get those items like Shiva's. It really lets you get them more consistently, I suppose. It's harder to stop Phoenix from getting those items. Base damage increased by 3, good. I want to see more of Puck. Extra damage resistance, also good. And that's a pretty dank change right there. Wow. So now Puck might be giving his allies moon shards, I guess. I mean, 420 gold per minute. That's crazy. That's actually crazy. I mean, I thought 300 was huge, but 420 is just on a whole nother level. I mean, look, Phoenix's new talent with the buff is 120 GPM. This change just added that much to 300, which was already huge, so now it's just absolutely insane. So it's interesting to see how Puck will be played now. That's good though, I like it. Hook speed reduced. Hook no longer pulls invulnerable units. I think this refers to things like Yule's and Naga Siren's Sleep. So, oh, and Juggernaut's Omni /2, which is really nice. So overall, I think that's okay. I don't think Hook was as ridiculous. I don't think Hook was ridiculous, but this is a good change. I think 1450. That's significant enough for it to be noticeable, but not. It won't make him, much worse of a hero because of it. Pugna level 10 talent, increased health. That's also good. I want to see more of Pugna. Now he's going to be better at pushing. And now he's going to be even better at pushing. Okay. And then this is just to compensate for that, since this one's now so good. That's good. Okay, level 10 talent increased from extra strength and extra damage on the other one. That's fairly good. I think Quap could use a boost. Extra HP, that's also fine. So remove Shadow Strike cooldown. So it's just 0 cooldown. It has such a long cast time though, which is the issue. I think if it was any other ability, it would be absolutely broken. But if it's just Shadow Strike cooldown, then I don't think that's really that huge, to be honest. I think you're gonna want to go for the lifesteal almost always. Extra movement speed, good. And agility, good. Now hits shrines, also good. we could see more of Razor, and this is a pretty good way to change it. Attack range reduced from 600 to 550, that's fine. Level 25 talent changed from minus 7 second Shadow Raise cooldown to 125 Shadow Raise damage. That's okay, that's fairly decent, I think. I don't know, actually. This is a change that's hard to tell what impact it's going to have. Because at level 25, people have BKBs anyway. Shaman, this is the interesting one. Base armor increased by 1, attack range reduced, damage increased by 18. So now core Shaman might be viable. And extra movement speed and health to go along with it. So I think Shadow Shaman's in a better spot now. He's just kind of, before he was really similar to Lion, now these changes really make him more, in the very early game, they make him more of a, higher risk and higher reward type hero. Slithering Crush duration reduced by 0.25 at all levels, that's good. Slithering Crush was extremely powerful. And this change is okay. It's the old Slardar model. That's fine. Slardar was strong. Spectre got buffed. That's pretty good. I think she's going to be okay now, if anything. Not great, though. Techies. Oh, man. This change really hurts, though. So much less damage early game from the mines. Yeah, I don't really know what the point of that was. Like, I can understand the change, but I don't really see why you'd just do that without buffing anything else about the hero. Because now it just seems like he's in such a bad spot with this. Because that's a massive decrease, especially at level 1. That's 75. That's huge. Yeah, Techies now seems to be really bad. Tiny got buffed. Okay. I guess we might be seeing a bit more of IO Tiny, or just Tiny split pushing in general. Pretty good. Cooldown increased. I think that's fine. And I think that this one is interesting, so now you'd have to get that maxed to get that 2-second decrease. So he got nerfed. I don't think he was overly powerful. I think this might... I assume that he would be added into Captain's Mode now. Is he in Captain's Mode? I don't think he's in Captain's Mode yet. I don't know. But I think this change would definitely bring him into line with other heroes. If anything, it might even make him too weak. 40% GPM on Tusk. Okay, so that's a ton... Or not GPM. Experience. That's a ton of experience. So that's a good change. I like it. Tusk wasn't really being picked that much. Extra movement speed. Meh. 5 at level 20 it really isn't that much. Don't think that's a big deal. Undying is going to be basically the same as he was before. Again, extra experience gain, that's great. And extra movement speed. I think the experience gain, now that it's at 30% at level 10 for Venomancer, it's pretty good. That's a big buff. Level 15 talent, extra strength on Viper. That makes him even scarier in the early mid game, although 1 strength really isn't that big of a deal. I do think it's hard to say. 1 strength really isn't that much. I don't think it'll affect much of anything. Again, more XP. That seems to be a trend for supports. Or, I don't know, maybe not supports. That just seems to be a trend in general, that the early experience gain talents are being buffed to make way for... Well, not to make way for anything, just to make them more powerful. And Familiar's HP rescaled, so now they don't die so much in the early game. That's good. Weaver, base damage reduced by 3. Oh man, this really, really hurts. Weaver is now in a fairly bad spot, with the Blightstone change too. And the movement speed reduction. This is a good change, but I still think the Shikchi might be a little bit better. But now with 35, I think this is actually a fairly okay talent now. Like, it's actually a choice now. instead of just automatically taking the movement speed. Windrunner is getting buffed. Windrunner cooldown reduced. That's okay. It's good. Extra slow. I still don't think it's that important. But who knows? Maybe now for fights, she's more powerful. And this is also a change that I think is good. -6 second power shot cooldown to -7. Yeah, because that talent really isn't used that much. I mean, Windrunner in general really isn't being played that much. But I guess this change it's kind of the opposite of what happened to Ember Spirit, in that the magic damage build for him was very powerful, whereas he used to be physical damage before. But now with a Windrunner, I feel like it was kind of Ice Frog tried to make her viable as a magic damage carry as well, or just make her most of her damage come from magic, but then before it just wasn't enough. When she was played, I believe she was mostly played physical still, but then this change is buffing the magical side of it. Winter Wyvern, extra strength, that's okay. 1 strength at level 10 isn't a huge deal, but that's, I think, okay. Scepter cooldown duration reduced. That looks like a buff to me, because 40 seconds. It's okay, so it's less useful for providing vision, but more useful for fighting. Because fights typically don't last 40 seconds, I don't think. At least not in that same spot. I mean, denying an area for 40 seconds is fairly good, but you're not going to be in the middle. You're not going to have a fight concentrated around that one spot for 40 seconds. It'll usually just move somewhere else then. And extra health on the talent. And extra damage on static field. Okay, so the static field change is good because honestly this talent was kind of garbage. 2% is fairly strong now. So now we might see it picked, but 2% still isn't huge. So it goes from, I believe, 10% to 12%. I don't know. That's okay. I still think the other talent is more powerful, though. So yeah, I guess that's it. I guess I'll demo the Arcana now. So yeah, here's what it looks like, you know. It's got some cool effects. You know, it's got a nice little Omni Slash animation, and this really isn't a video about demoing the Arcana though, but just in case you wanted to see what it looks like, here it is. That's the spin. Yeah, it's okay. So I guess that's it for this video then. I don't really have anything else to show, so yeah, this has been 1K MMR impressions of Dota 2 7.03. I'll see you guys next time.